Hi everyone, I'm Alex from Primetime Miniatures. Since I finally received my Sanguinary guard, I wanted to get started on the minis right away. First of all, Games Workshop. Where are the wings? Why? Why? Luckily I had a solution for pimping up my boys. The bits from Great High Studios are just right. There are lots of options here, but what immediately caught my eyes was the jetpack with wings. If you're interested, I'll be happy to link you the page. First we spray the mini black. I use Vallejo black primer here. Oh yeah, before I forgot, I didn't glue the jetpack and the right shoulder on. I just attached them so that I can paint these parts separately later. You're probably thinking now, hey, why silver? The boys are golden. I like to try out a lot of different methods and show you how you can still get a great result without the typical gold colors. I use Vallejo metal color silver for this step and spray the Zenithal onto my mini to make the deepest area darker. This step can also be done with a spray can or a brush. To achieve the golden tone, I spray the contrast color Nastrek Yellow from Games Workshop 1:1 diluted with water over my airbrush. Take your time here and dose the color well. If you spray too much, the color will be more orange. If you don't have an airbrush, you can work with a brush. It is also important here that you dilute the color and work from part to part. Since we lost a lot of depth, I shaded it afterwards with black oil paint. In this case, I dilute my oil paint very heavily. I would say 1 to 6. The oil paint is super easy to work into the surface. If something goes wrong, you can always touch it up again with white spirit. This step can also be done with non-oil. I've linked the video above where I prepared the oil paints for another mini. Now I paint all parts that are black, such as weapons and other stuffs, with Abaddon black from Games Workshop. Now we paint the loincloth. For this I use corn red as the first layer and paint both sides. For the first highlight, I use my Fiston Red from Games Workshop and paint the areas that stand out the most. Then I gradually add more color, and for the last highlight I use Wild Rider Red. For this color I only paint a few areas that are hit the most by the light. I do something similar with the right shoulder. First, I paint everything with corn red and use the same color to create the highlight that should stand out the most. Now we place the decal. I use macro sol to place them and macro set to make the decal adapt to the surface. Now take your time. I take a brush and place it carefully. Now we can paint the blood drop of the blood angels. To do this, I first paint the drop black and start painting the lower half with corn red. Little by little I build up the color with Mephiston Red and Wild Rider Red, so that the previous color is always visible. I recommend using a brush with a very thin tip. Now we paint the ampoule where the blood is. First I paint it black and then with corn red. I paint it as if the blood were moving to the movement. Then I paint a white line on the top red layer with a thin brush. As a final step, I paint a few highlights with Mephiston red. Voila, it's finished. Now we paint the badge on the left shoulder. To do this, we first paint the wings black and then paint 80% of the area with Administratum Grey. The previous color should always show through a little. Once that's done, we can mix a little white and do the same, leaving a little Administratum Grey visible this time. I would use a 1-to-1 mix to make the most important areas pop up the most. Now we paint the jetpack wings on the both sides in the same way. I will tell you one thing, I thought it would be fun. No, it wasn't. Not at all. I have to admit that I will do this step with the airbrush in the future because it took me a lot of time. But I have to say, I really like the end result. Now we come to the sword. I used masking tape and covered half of the sword and sprayed white spots with the airbrush. I did the same on the other side. To represent the energy blade, I diluted Frostheart and slowly sprayed it onto the sword with the airbrush. I then painted edge highlights onto the blade with pure white and used Frostheart to create an OSL effect. As a final step, I trap brushed with Liberator Gold onto the metallic parts to bring them out a little bit more. I finally have my Sanguinary guards with wings. 5 more are ready to go into battle soon. I think it's a shame that Games Workshop didn't make the wings, especially because the Sanguinary actually had some of these wings already. But I'm still glad there was a model refresh. I wish you all a nice weekend and a lot of fun swinging your brushes. And a nice farewell, a wise quote from my fellow countryman: "Get to the chopper!"